With Bashir and AJ joining, we do have a quorum now. Whenever you're ready to begin, Brian.
Okay, yeah, sounds great. Let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to our March meeting. I can't believe we're in March already, but here we are. And with the start of this meeting here, we have an opportunity to do some introductions. I don't know if we have anyone in our meeting today that hasn't attended before that we'd like to do introductions for. I'm not seeing really too many new names. We do have Zach Kosea from City of Mesa with us today. He's going to be helping present the landscaping cases, and we can have him introduce himself as he's going through that process. Is there anyone else on the call that we need to do introductions with? Okay, excellent. Then agenda item.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Ryan. I was notified that Ryan Hardy is filling in for Brian Gallimore today.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Thank you. And I missed that one. Ryan, do you want to do an introduction?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ryan Hardy with WSP and representing the AGC. I'm doing a proxy for Brian Gallimore today.
Excellent. You're probably trying to avoid that, but we're making you do the introduction anyway. So thank you.
No, it's fine. I try to sneak by, but you got me.
All right. Okay, agenda item number 2 is the call to the audience. This is an opportunity for members of the public to provide input through written comment to the Standard Specifications and Details Committee on items that are not on the agenda, that are within the jurisdiction of MAG, or on items on the agenda for discussion but not for action. Members of the public are asked to submit written comments related to this meeting through the MAG website and indicate for which meeting the comment is intended. Comments may be sent at any time leading up to the meeting, but must be received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. Comments received prior to the deadline will be read aloud during the meeting. Comments must not exceed 3 minutes in length, and a total of 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item, unless the chair of the Standard Specifications and Details Committee requests an exception to this limit. Please note that the comments received for agenda items posted for action will be read at the time the item is heard. To attend the meeting by technological means, members of the public may access the link to watch the video stream on the MAG website by clicking on the view and listen link provided under the related links section on the azmag.gov site. Gordon, did we receive any comments from the public?
No, I haven't received any in advance.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go on to agenda item number 3, approval of the February 2nd, 2022 meeting minutes. I hope everyone had a chance to review those, but if not, we can take just a minute here. And Gordon, if you'll scroll through those ever so slowly, if people have a chance to refresh their memory on that. And after a few minutes, we'll entertain a motion on those minutes or for any corrections that you might find.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I can second that.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Warren. Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote on the meeting minutes for today. If Gordon, you want to walk us through that?
Sure. Starting with Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Buckeye is a yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Yes.
Goodyear, anyone from Goodyear? Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes. So,
Youngtown. Guess they're not present.
Okay, thank you, Gordon. I appreciate you walking us through that. So we're ready for agenda item number 4. And actually, Gordon, I think I missed on the agenda any introductory discussion. So before we get into those agenda items, do you want to talk through the potential for meeting in person?
Sure. We're notified by our executive team this month that for the month of March, they are beginning in-person meetings for our policy committees, which include the Regional Council, Management Committee, Transportation Policy Committee, and so on. And then beginning in April, they're going to start in-person meetings for any of the technical committees, including our own. So if this group would want to meet in person on our April meeting, which is on, let me check the calendar real quick, April 6th, we would be open for doing a hybrid meeting where we meet in the Ironwood room as we've done in the past, but also would be a Zoom meeting that people could join either remotely, and the people that are in the room also participate because the mics and the video that are in the room would be fed through the Zoom system as well. So that's, I guess, what Meg's plan is, and just kind of want to get the feel from this group. If you're ready to come back to meeting in person, if you prefer meeting in person or would prefer to call in to get an idea how we need to support the hybrid meeting, those are some of the things that I'd like to get some feedback on.
Excellent, thank you, Gordon. So let's just start with that question. Are any of the committee members interested in returning to in-person meetings?
Yeah, this is Craig and Buckeye. I guess we're probably one of the farthest ones out, but I've been saying this for a number of years that in-person meetings are invaluable. So I would be an advocate to have in-person meetings.
Thank you.
This is AJ with the town of Gilbert. I second that.
Okay.
This is Warren. I agree as well. That would be nice. I mean, obviously, it would be nice to offer that option or occasion if you're not able to get downtown, though, as the hybrid option. But I do agree with those that having the in-person, I think we're more effective that way.
Okay, excellent. And anyone else is welcome to weigh in.
Yeah, this is Carl. Gordon, would that hybrid option continue into the future, you think?
Yes, as far as I know, the plan is to always allow that ability to call in.
Yeah, because that's kind of becoming the way of the world. We had that discussion. And
Yeah.
we've lifted all restrictions at the county now with masks and meetings and all that stuff. But yeah, we're going forward. I think it's a reality that you probably get more participation by having the hybrid option. So I would support that, the hybrid going forward.
In your recent experience where you've opened up meetings for in person, what's the experience that you've had as far as people attending in person or still calling in?
That just happened this week. So
Oh, okay.
I've had a couple in-person meetings, but they're pretty small. And, instead of in a conference room where you're separated by 15 or 20 feet, it was actually, no, actually it was in a conference room. I take that back. But and I think you still have the option of wearing the mask and being careful. If you're compromised or you have somebody in your family that is compromised, it's a choice that you should offer. I believe that's what the recommendations are with CDC and with the county.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Anyone else that would like to make a comment?
Yeah, this is Jim from Avondale. I think it's good to have both options. It would be good to come in and meet in person once in a while, but if you can't, there are times you can't. So it's nice to have that backup. So.
Okay, Gordon, it sounds like we have plenty of interest of people attending in person. So is that something that we can plan on then having the hybrid option for both in person and the Zoom attendance for the next meeting then?
Yeah, let's plan on that for the April 6th meeting and kind of see.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Gordon. Was there anything else that you wanted to go over before we dive into the cases?
Only that similar to what Carl was saying, that we want to try and keep social distancing and mask use is optional if you want to do that when you come into the meeting.
Great, thank you.
So
Okay.
Ryan,
Sorry. One other thing I wanted to add is they are also opening the meetings up to the public again. So anyone from the public who is interested in attending the MAG meetings, including our own, could come and sit in on them.
Thank you. Jeff, go ahead.
so just to go the next step further, what about working groups? I would speak for my group. I would like to continue our next meeting, even though we didn't have a last meeting, but continue the next meeting probably on as virtual, and then let the group make the decision how to proceed from that point in time. But
Yeah, Jeff, I think that makes sense. And I think that's appropriate because the working groups, depending on where the meeting is held, may not have the same technological advantages of being able to do in person and Zoom both concurrently quite as efficiently. So I think that's appropriate to continue the current method and have some discussion about that in the working groups. If the working groups are held at MAG itself, I'm sure the same technological means would be available, but I know some of the working groups are held elsewhere.
it does take additional staff help, and I'm not speaking for you, Gordon, but either way we do it, whether we continue to meet at ARPA or whether and open it up, or whether we meet at MAG, it does provide, it does require some additional resources to make that whole hybrid thing work. So I intend on keeping our next meeting certainly as virtual, and then we can make the decision going forward.
Yeah, MAG does have the smaller conference rooms, do have the same capabilities from my understanding now. So if we met in one of the smaller conference rooms for the working groups, such as we've done in the past for the water sewer group, that'd probably be available. As you're aware, we haven't been meeting at MAG for the asphalt concrete group. So that's something to consider. And then the outside right-of-way group has never met in person. It's always been, the more recent versions, I guess I should say, have always met online. So.
Well, ARPA has the technology as we've all grown accustomed to, right? We put in the technologies and those kinds of things in order to make them work. Some of our other committees have been meeting hybrid for a number of months now. So I think the capability is definitely there, but I know I would agree that on some subjects, it certainly is beneficial to have face-to-face conversations about, but we certainly get more participation by having that virtual option at least.
Yeah, Jeff, I'd support that notion that I think it's a conversation in each individual working group, and I think that's appropriate. Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, we can move on to agenda item number 4 and 5. We'll talk about these 2 agenda items together. Just as a brief overview, these are the revised landscaping specifications and new landscaping details. And attending our meeting today is Zach Kosea. He's been instrumental in helping to put together these cases, along with Wayne and some other staff outside of the MAG committee, and Peter with your help, of course. So I was going to ask Zach if he wanted to take a few minutes and kind of give us an update on the current status of those.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ryan. I'm thankful to be here today. I know Wayne was planning on attending, but he had a field conflict. So in the past, you've had Wayne to deal with, but today you get me. So I work with Ryan in the engineering department at the City of Mesa, and I've been working with Wayne and some others from a small work group that was created last year to update the landscape and irrigation specifications and details. The case today that we're looking at is specific to the landscape sections. There's the 3 sections as noted on the screen. Section 225 topsoil, 430 is landscaping, and 795 is landscape materials. So we're working diligently as a work group to get these finalized by the end of last year, so they could be adopted. But there was just quite a few things, quite a few moving parts with these. So with the beginning of 2022, we've picked up this effort again, and we went through, and the last month or so, we went and we had a couple, I would say minor, a few comments that were added. So I went through and I updated those, incorporated those comments into what we have today that's available in the packet to review. The changes, the most recent wave of changes that I incorporated, a lot of them were grammatical in nature, sentence structure, things like that. I don't know that there was anything really major that would change the intent of what these specification sections are focused on accomplishing. So at this point, I think what we're requesting is that this is our draft of these 3 sections, and we're hoping that we can get these out to the MAG committee and solicit any comments in the next month or 2, and hopefully finalize this process and get these incorporated. It's been a long time coming. The landscape and irrigation specifications and details in MAG are very outdated. So I know a lot of the cities in the valley have their own supplements, or supplements to MAG, Mesa included. And so I think this is a really valuable effort to try to standardize as much of this as we can, so it becomes a really good resource and tool for the cities in the valley. Ryan, that's kind of overview and introduction. Is there anything specific you want me to talk about, or?
Well, let me just clarify one thing. I think the latest version was not in the packet itself, but has been posted to the website now.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Gordon?
Yes, and I sent out an email reminder this morning that included the link. So they're on the meeting page here. These are the latest versions that were just uploaded today, this morning. So this is the latest greatest for you to download and review. I know they're hoping to get the final reviews done. So,
and my understanding is some of the edits that were just made were based on comments received by the city of Tempe. In part, in our last meeting, I know there were a couple agencies that had indicated they wanted to get the specifications and details in front of others within their organization. I have not received any additional comments thus far, so I don't know if any additional comments have been generated yet. If not, then please take a look at the most recent drafts here, as we just showed with the links, and then please forward any comments to myself, and I'll make sure they get sent to the group, including Zach, Wayne. Peter, did you have something else that you want to talk about with regard to these?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for going through these. We have been, we've had these on the agenda for quite some time. And I think last time we talked about, we'd get these revisions in which incorporate comments received to date, give everybody a month or so to go through it, and then look for a vote in May. I think we decided let's not ask for it this time, but in the April meeting, we talked about asking for a May vote.
Yes, that sounds correct. Any questions by committee members? We've got the expert here today, so today's the best day to ask the questions.
Peter is here today, so that's good.
Oh, no. I only know landscape I got to do in my yard. No, I've done a little bit, but you guys are the better experts.
No, I appreciate Gordon, Peter, and Ryan for your guys' involvement and support to get it to this point. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I think they're looking good. I've gone through. When we had it through the working group, I went through and had my detailed comments, and I think these are first, we have details now. We didn't before, so I think that's a major improvement where we had been.
This is Warren. Just a minor comment on this one, for example. I think the 600-1 on the detail number on the bottom right. I think we just need to have the 600-1 on the lower left as well for consistency. Easy stuff.
Yeah, right now they've all been numbered as 600-3 and so on. Is that the preference of the group, or did you want to have different numbers for each one, like 601, 602? But yeah, you'd want the same number on this side as well.
These are all planting details then, right? No, I would say there should be distinct detail numbers for like the granite. Maybe you could have a series for the planting, but I would say it should be a distinct detail number.
Do we have any other details? The 600 series is new, correct? There's no current 600 series?
Correct.
And I guess the question that I would have is there an intent to have other details be 600 series in the future?
We're going to have the irrigation details too in that same series.
Okay. So we're not going to run out of 600. If every detail was numbered individually, 601, 602, 603, we're not going to run out of numbers for this, right?
We may want to look at putting some of these in a series, like planting details, to try to start grouping them a little bit in terms of concept.
Right.
So hardscape versus vegetation, things like that could be one way to look at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't think there's any value in just having it 600-5, 6, 600-6, and continuing the series for every single number.
Yeah, let me take a look at that. I'm going to give a shot at what I'll send you, Zach, you a recommendation when I'm looking at it. I want to look in another standards book that I've got and see how they're doing their series. And see how they're grouping these. Again, I know hardscape probably is going to be one group. So, 601 hardscape, and then there'd be -1, -2, and so on. But I need to look at another standard that's been used in a similar manner. And I'll send you a recommendation at least.
This is Carl. The 600 often refers to the section in the written specs. At least that's how we kind of do it at the county. And 600, I believe, is in the written specs is more like concrete related, or channels or concrete. Whereas at the we developed landscape specifications and they're under 430. So I don't know if you want to think about that or not in terms of what number series you want to use.
I don't think
The
this,
400 is wastewater though, Carl.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
yeah, I don't know that the
Okay.
specification sections align with the detail numbers.
Is there any other place in MAG with landscaping? Yeah,
There's a
currently?
700. There's a 700 series also.
Okay.
Chandler is using 700 if that helps. And I think we're using 600 for streetlights and traffic signals.
Yeah, that's a problem where the specs numbers don't necessarily align with the same on the details.
They don't really on any of our details though.
Okay.
But it is a good point that if several cities are using similar numbering systems for their landscaping, whether it's 600s or 700s.
Yeah, with the county, we try to align the spec, the details, and the bid items, at least the root number of the bid item with those the parent section in MAG. And sometimes we actually create a new section, but something similar in the let's say in the 400 or the 600 series.
Yeah, in Avondale supplement, we don't have any details for landscape irrigation, but we do have a spec section, and it aligns with the specs and spec section in MAG of section 400. So
Yeah, so we run into the challenge of how best to start a new section with something that a few cities have already. And some agencies aren't, they have it as a separate document completely outside of their supplements. So they don't even, as far as I know, don't have a similar series number. So it's really up to the committee. What do you want to do? What series do you want to assign to these landscape irrigation, all that, those kinds of things that are, or do we want to start a section that deals with things that are not anywhere else?
Yeah, I know these details will actually become bid items. So you got to kind of think about that. If it's a bid item, then it refers to it possibly refers to a section in MAG that describes what it is and how it's measured and how it's paid for. I think McDOT has kind of evolved to try to get them somewhat related.
We would need to do that in a lot of MAG if we were going to do that. Because right now that's not.
Right. That's a bigger discussion than,
yeah.
That's a bigger discussion than this whole
Well,
landscape.
all of your details you're showing here, are they plant related? Or some of them
No,
are
not
concrete?
that's the majority of them, but there is like a concrete landscape header curb. There's a DG placement detail. There's a boulder placement detail. And then we'll also have a series or a grouping of landscape irrigation related details as well.
So
That'll complement this.
Yeah, some of them are somewhat concrete related, and others are more plant and landscaping related. So yeah, it probably is kind of tough to kind of say it. But yeah, they probably should all be in a series that's somewhat by itself and not confused with another part of MAG.
And we also have to realize if we get the landscape irrigation, we don't want that confused with irrigation as it's described right now in MAG, which is more of a piping system. Think of it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just pulled up our current detail table of contents just to kind of show that it ends in the 500s right now.
Okay, so yeah, we actually are in a brand new section. So no, actually that makes sense then. Okay.
And just related to that, one thing I wanted to point out is our landscape irrigation. We don't just call it an irrigation section. We always put landscape in front of it to help differentiate from any sort of irrigation or storm drain information or like what's on the screen. So I'd suggest that we keep that we call it landscape irrigation, and that helps to really set it apart from any other irrigation system that may be covered by MAG.
So, I mean, right now we can hold with just the numbers, but I think by the next meeting, we probably need a decision. Do I want to go 600, 700? I think we chose not to go into the thousands intentionally because that would get more confusing. So I think we had 6, 7, 8, or 9.
Well, 600 I think is fine, but you might look at kind of grouping them, the 600 series, the 610 series, or whatever, if there's some differentiation within your details here.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to go look at another source that I've got, how they've been grouping their standards. I'll go look and see how that's done. There's a federal, or not a federal, but there's a national CSI format. They also have that grouping system. So that's what I wanted to go look and see how CSI has been doing theirs.
Okay.
Peter, was the intent kind of have like landscaping under 100 section and then irrigation under a different 100 section? Is that?
No, the thought had been we're going to put them all under one.
Okay, so everything will be a 600 something for any type of landscaping type setup. Yeah,
landscape irrigation. If somebody comes up with something else, I mean, I'm even thinking like, it depends how we want to use gabions. The existing gabion one, is that really more of a landscape hardscape feature, or is it really truly a wall, or do we want to even look at a more of a landscape gabion? Well, that would go in the landscaping section if it's not a structural element. Things like that. I'm thinking that they'd all fall in that same arena.
Okay.
Zach, do you know if there are any other changes to the details other than numbering them?
No, I don't believe there was. I think it was just an effort to update the numbering.
Okay.
I know Wayne worked more specifically on those, but I don't recall in our last few meetings anything being mentioned other than updating it to the 600 series.
If I remember right, these are heavily borrowed from City of Tempe.
Correct.
Because we got the CAD details from them.
Okay, any additional questions or comments on landscape specifications or landscaping details? Okay, once again, if you have a chance to have people within your agency review those in this coming month, please send me any comments and we'll work to address those. Moving on then, okay, yeah, we're moving on to agenda item number 6, case 22-01, miscellaneous corrections. We've got 3 of them in there. Section 725.7.2 to remove the word "and" from the last sentence of the first paragraph. Detail 535-4, change in notes. The ASTM numbers are being corrected or updated. And detail 140, and again, same thing with the ASTM being revised from an outdated ASTM to a more current one. Are there any other miscellaneous correction items that people would like to add? Any other discussion on these items?
Hey, Ryan, I apologize. Going back to item 5, I forgot to mention when I was on the MAG website today, Gordon, when you click on the links for the landscape items, they are not working right now.
Let me check here. So these ones?
No, the case links.
The case links?
On the page before this. Yeah, the under consideration, yes.
Oh, these?
Yeah.
You're right. I guess we'll have to check on that. Okay, they are linked here on the materials side. So I'll need to fix these hyperlinks, but they are right here and here in the list if you want to get them there.
Okay, thank you.
Good. I like that, Warren. That means you're downloading those and sending them to people for review, right?
Exactly.
All right. Do it during the meeting, guys. That's good. That's a good strategy.
If I knew how to do a thumbs up in Zoom, I would. I only know how to do that in Teams. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, which is case 22-02 revisions to detail 260, detail 260. Warren, you want to give us an update on this one?
Sure, I have not received anything in terms of comments from folks out there, so unless there's anything, let's go ahead and open it up. So it was a pretty simple update, just that in yellow, to update the thickness for commercial or alley to 8-inch. So unless there's any feedback or comments on this, I guess might like to call for a vote in the next meeting.
Great. Anybody have questions or comments or feel like they need more time to review this detail? Okay, hearing none, then Gordon, let's put this as for proposed action in our next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Warren. I know you spent hours and hours working on this intricate detail.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to case 8 or item 8, agenda item 8, case 22-03, our update to concrete collar on detail 391-1. And Roy.
Hello, everybody. So this was an item that we brought up for the first time last month. The discussion was to bring it forward as a normal case. Essentially, where this is coming from is this is a comment that's come to me from our maintenance folks out in the field, having issues with the existing collars around the water valves, basically getting silted over or even getting plugged. And that was when we started looking at the detail. And of course, what you see in front of you there is the detail as it exists today. That kind of shows on the left side, I've kind of clouded it there. It shows the kind of the 2 inches of cover over top of the collar. And so we discussed this a little bit in the meeting. We talked about, well, does it really need to be, does the collar need to be curved like what it is there, and can it be straight and or flat? And so I did go back and I talked with our maintenance folks, and they were certainly fine with having it as a straight slope, but they still would prefer to keep the elevation difference, the 2-inch difference between where your existing grade would be and where your top of your collar would be. And so basically the difference between what we had last time and what this is here is this shows the slope is basically a straight line as opposed to a curved portion. I did add the call out underneath it for the diameter, the outside diameter, the 40-inch outside diameter. And that 2-inch difference, kind of where I'm getting those from, is from some of our other existing details. And that's kind of the examples that follow. This being the example of our survey markers, where you can see we've got a 2-inch difference on those where we're in areas that are not paved. And they also call out the 40-inch diameter for the collar. And then the next example is our sewer cleanouts, where also in unpaved areas we've got the difference in elevation between the frame and the top of the collar. And then the last one, I think, was one we looked at last time, which was kind of the manhole frame and cover adjustment, again, for areas that are outside of the pavement where we've got a 2-inch difference. And that 2-inch difference is more just from a maintenance standpoint to try and relieve some of the maintenance headaches that our folks have out in the field, whether it's from leaf blowers that are blowing dirt around, or DG, or the raking of DG, or even if you have a little bit of soil migration, if you've got a heavy rain going on, that it's pretty easy for those to get covered up. And that's why we're kind of proposing the 2-inch difference as opposed to the flat. But I want to open it up to the committee, obviously, for discussion.
Hey, Roy, it's Craig out in Buckeye. I completely agree with this. We had a conversation with a couple of guys a couple of weeks ago about this. And to your point, we've got the leaf blowers and the small storms, but we got the heavy tractors out here on some of our side streets that aren't really completed yet. So the 2 inches raised is something we like. It kind of keeps it up, keeps it monumentized, and it makes it a lot easier to see. We've also got an additional requirement on some of these that are outside of the pavement. We actually put markers up. Again, I don't know about other cities, but out here we're out in the middle of nowhere sometimes, and these markers they're invaluable. So even 2 inches up, we can lose a valve or a manhole. So, but no, we do like this. So I'm good for it.
Thank you.
This is Carl. On the unpaved roadways, when you have a 2-inch rise like that and 12 inches, and you got, maybe higher speed traffic, and if these are right in the wheel path, is that kind of a hard bump with a little 2-inch thing like that?
I guess I looked at it as that's what we've got on our survey markers and our sewer cleanouts and our manhole frames in unpaved areas. I mean, I did a little bit of thinking about this and just things that have a little bit of a vertical rise in the roadway. I mean, we've got raised pavement markers. Those are probably about an inch or so, depending upon the mastic or the sealant or the adhesive, I'm sorry, that you have underneath them. So I mean, those aren't 2 inches high. All I can say is that I don't think it would be an issue, and it's something that we've got in other areas in our details already.
In the maintenance grading of these roads, they can kind of work around this this little rise, you think?
I would think so. I think one of the advantages of having the outside diameter being 40 inches is the rise on that isn't significant.
Okay. I thought I saw one that was like 12 inches and 2-inch rise and 12-inch.
No, this would not be that
okay.
that abrupt. And I think on the other collars, they also call out the 40-inch diameter. So I wanted to obviously continue that on this, because that could also be another reason why you want the collar a little bit larger on the outside and be able to control that distance.
Yeah, I think this is a good thing, but just a thought. I've run into this in the past. Is had a water company that actually let the valve be about 6 inches deep, and they put an old sign on it and bury it, with the 6 inches of AB, and they'd have a marker off to the side. Of course, it's kind of a pain. They have to dig it up if they have to ever do anything with the valve. But they felt that was one way to deal with something like this.
Hey, Royce, Jim Badowich. So we talked about this at our working group meeting, and I thought the consensus when we got out of the group was we thought it'd be best just to leave it flush. Still do the collar and leave it flush, because again, they tend to disappear and get covered up. So we if you want to raise them, that's fine. But the problem is that I talked to other people and contractors since our working group meeting. They say, well, nobody really sets grades on these. So they said, it's going to be hard to get your 2 inches. And I kind of drove around the city, and all of ours are, you couldn't tell if they're raised or flush. And they're still getting covered up. So I talked to our maintenance people, and they said they'd rather have it flush again, so that you don't have any rocks right up to the lip, because that just leads to getting debris into there. So they prefer just to have the concrete visible and flush around the box, so you can find it, because that's the whole purpose, if you wanted to find it and access the valve.
Sure. No, I agree with that as far as and I think we're kind of talking about the same thing. We want that visible as well. And so that the maintenance guys that we've got that I've talked with, same thing, that they're trying to keep dirt out of the valve, and whether it's got a debris cap in it or not. And I don't know that all of ours do, to be honest with you, but they're very much wanting to try to keep the debris out. So by making that collar flush, I would say that, yeah, that's better than having it down 2 inches, but having the frame up even another 2 inches would give you that much more, if you want to call it leeway, or I was going to say freeboard, but that's kind of a hydraulic term. That much more distance that you could have the dirt build up before it gets into the basically riser pipe there. So I see the 2 inches as a little bit of insurance, and all I can say is it seems like it's consistent with what with the survey markers and the cleanouts that are obviously all over the county.
Yeah, Roy, I by actually having if you want to call a reveal between the actual frame and the concrete being up a couple inches, I kind of see an issue. Carl brought up maintenance of a road. So yeah, if you get a blade going through there and you've got that frame sticking up a couple inches, I think that could be, not real good on that valve box. But I do like the fact that it's above, and it doesn't have to be finished grade, but it's above kind of the surrounding area, maybe a better way.
I guess.
Hey, Roy, this is Warren real quick. Yeah, we've had a detail since 2002 for this, kind of similar to yours, but it's, for some reason, we've only had a 1/2 inch difference, which doesn't seem like very much now that we're talking about it. So, but yeah, it's just 1/2 inch with a 12 inch radius. I can get some input from our distribution folks on this topic and get back to you, but that's what we've had.
Hey, on type B, not subject to vehicular traffic in the lower right corner, I've often seen those valves kind of up in the air, that the lid up maybe an inch or two above the soil or the landscaping. And I would assume for that reason. So you don't, when you get the heavy rains and stuff, you're not the silt and all is not seeping into these valve covers.
I think every valve box should have a concrete ring. We require concrete rings wherever the valve is, in the street, landscape area, dirt road, because that helps keep them plumb. Because when you get maintenance and grading, that valve box is going to be shifted without that anchor of the concrete collar. And then when you got an emergency and you're trying to find the valve, you're not going to get to it. So
you think maybe
I'd like to see type B not eliminated, or just again put concrete around it. I think every valve box should have concrete around it. Talk to your maintenance people, because if it gets shifted, then they can't, the key won't get to the nut, and then it's useless. So that concrete helps anchor that valve box to keep it plumb over the valve nut.
Yeah, I was just say I agree. In Scottsdale, I think all of our valves have the collars around them. So yeah, we don't even use the type B, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Jim, to add what you're talking about, even after, like we're talking a heavy rainstorm, or even not a heavy rainstorm, just saturating everything around it, you get any kind of vehicle that drives up next to it, even if it's, if it's in a landscape area and somebody jumps the curb, they're going to knock that box out of plumb, and then your maintenance guys are going to be out there completely redoing the valve box. So we do the same thing. We put collars around everything.
Yeah, it's my thought. I'd like to, if we're gonna revise this, I'd like to even eliminate the type B. I don't think it's a good practice.
Yeah, the collar just in itself is a good insurance.
I agree, Jim. Plus, this detail was always a little too busy. So that would help if we eliminated something on this to allow for a little more space for relevant information.
Nope, I can certainly pull that off. If that's sounds like that's what the committee would like.
Can someone walk me through on type B? I'm seeing down around the valve itself, not the valve box, but the valve itself. I'm seeing the concrete, what it says, Class B concrete riser pad. But I don't see that on the other types. What's going on with that at that location?
That concrete riser pad that's right there in the middle of the detail, the view A-A, that concrete riser pad actually sits over top of the valve, and then your valve boxes sit inside of that pad.
So is that the part of the detail that I'm hearing a lot of people say they don't use that detail? Is that part not applicable, or is it just up on the top? You're saying the same detail is applicable. You just would prefer to see the concrete ring around the top.
I believe that riser pad can be used on the 391-2 also. Basically what it does is your pipe fits on top of that, as opposed to, if you look at the type C, the lower adjuster, the lower valve box has got kind of a flange piece that kind of, it will not necessarily sit on the valve, but it sits on the ground. Where you've got pipe, you don't have that flange. You've just got a thin piece of pipe material that would just drive right into the ground. And that concrete riser deters that.
Okay, so I'm hearing though people want to take off type B altogether. Is it worth leaving type B and just adding a concrete ring at the top, or is everyone comfortable that type B just doesn't get used?
I can tell you, doing this more than 20 years, I've never used a type B.
Okay.
Yeah, that concrete riser pad was kind of what they used to support the pipe, because they used pipe instead of a ductile iron valve box. I mean, some people still use the pipe, but they use like PVC pipe now. In the old days, they actually would use a piece of ACP pipe.
So
okay.
I'm hearing it. If we pull off that type B, we'll still keep the concrete riser pad, but I don't know if you guys would want me to move that view AA that's kind of in the center of what you're seeing on the screen there, to move it over to the next page, the 391-2. If I think Craig said that it's used on the next page.
I'd suggest this is let's combine a type A and type B into one, and use the top of type A and use the bottom maybe of type B.
I think that's what those, if you look at 391-2, I believe that's what that shows. I don't know if Gordon's got the whole book handy, but I believe that's what the 391-2 shows. Yeah, there's that concrete at the bottom.
Yeah, there you go.
The pad. So we could actually take the concrete pad detail, move it over here to the 391-2, because on the 391-1, the pad's not used because it's the cast iron valve box.
But I
Speaking of this,
I think 392 is more the adjustment part, so they're not gonna go down and put that riser pad when they're adjusting the valves boxes, so.
Just seems like we have way too many adjustment details on this one, right? I mean, the graphics need to all be consistent, but like there's some consolidation here that we could make.
Maybe. But I think on 391, we could definitely combine those two to one if we're gonna leave it on there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I guess then it looks like the only difference, if we combine them, is you're going with, I was gonna say a different frame and cover. But if it's, I guess if it's the same, or it would be the same, you're still having detail 270 for both your now your cover as well as your frame, because now you're adding a frame. Basically detail or type B becomes type A. So I guess back to, is there or maybe I'm missing something, is to.
On type C, is the deep skirted lid, is that in use today?
Yes, that is, City of Scottsdale uses the type C.
Okay.
The type C, you can put different lids on it. You can do lockdown. There's all kinds of choice. And yeah, you can put a deep skirt lid if you want. That's what we do. We use a 391C. It's, you know, and then we just choose a deep skirt lid.
But Roy, I do agree with you. I think if we were to, or we can, if we could combine the A and B, and we would just be, the only revision there would be, we would be adding a frame.
So just, right, adding a frame, but then we would still want the collar too.
Correct.
So we add the frame, and then with the collar, and then doesn't that then now become a, what you see up above is a type A?
That's correct. Yeah.
speaking of this type A, would you want to make the same change to this one as you do for type C, where it goes at an angle and you have a 2-inch reveal?
I would suggest that.
We can take this up at the, we already did sort of at the mag or the working group, Roy, if you want to, get down into the more nitty gritty of it
Okay.
at that meeting. But feel free to update this, and then you can submit it at our working group meeting.
Will do.
Is there any thought to changing these details to a straight slant as well? Survey marker and the sewer cleanout?
I think consistency would be a good thing across the board.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty clear when it's a straight angle versus that reverse curve, which doesn't really have any data on how to exactly do that. So I think the straight grade is more better for constructability.
I agree. Plus the drafters will be happier too.
Hey.
I don't know that sewer tap at Cleanout. It actually it kind of rises up before it goes
Yeah,
down.
you got a little hump there.
Yeah, it does.
Little camelback. Would the committee like me to basically revise all those? And I don't know whether each one of these then becomes a separate case, or we're able to keep it in as the same case, but whatever the committee would like, I'm happy to revise them.
I think single case is fine as long as we're listing each detail we're modifying.
Well, and another thought is what we can do is if we're just changing a line on some of the other details, can we make that a miscellaneous? If we're going to make some major changes with 391, then we can do that, but we can make just a miscellaneous case for changing the slope, if you may, of the collar.
I like that.
Are they all 40-inch diameter?
So the survey marker one is, it calls it out. I'm trying to remember, sorry, the next one.
That's just 40-inch.
So that's 40, and then the last, and that one calls out as well there, yeah.
Yeah, I think make sure that we got the 40 in there. I think the really small ones just won't stand up in time with the traffic and weather and especially in unpaved roads.
Right. Okay, I will, I'll update those and I'll play around with the 391. I guess, do we want to still we still want to have a B? I'm assuming it'll just be, I don't know what the difference between the A and the B will necessarily be. I guess by definition underneath the type A and type B, one says used for vehicular traffic, and the other one, the type B, says not subject to vehicular traffic.
I guess, Roy, I'd probably just ask around and see if anybody uses the type B. If it's not being used, then we use type A for vehicular traffic or off the side of the road. So
would the committee be okay if this detail ends up with a type A and a type C, but not necessarily a type B?
I think that would be appropriate, because you got to go back and look at history sometimes. What we did have at one time. It shows up in court cases and other things.
yeah, the other challenge too is supplements actually call out 391 type 1 or type C. And if we change that type C to something else, then supplements have to change.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think we want to change type C to a different type, especially that's duplicate to something we had in the past. If we leave out type B, you might just put a note that says type B no longer used, or type B not used.
Great.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Roy. Okay, agenda item 9, new and potential cases for 2022. We've got a few of them that are listed on here. Before we talk about each one of those real quick, I'll just mention that the intent is to submit a new case for the landscape irrigation. We talked about the landscape specifications and details, but that is the irrigation ones are intended to be submitted for a new case in either April or May, depending on verifying that the drafts are ready. Those are new specifications and new details that don't exist currently. So we want to make sure there's a draft that's ready to submit for that case. So that should be coming either April or May. And then the other new potential cases that we've got on our list here, sidewalk cross slope calculations. Carl, I think that's one that you've been looking at and considering.
Yeah, I sent you like a hand sketch previously, and it might not have been really clear. So I took this detail, looked at it. I said, well, heck, if we change the slope, the target slope on a sidewalk is 1% plus or minus 0.5%. Then we get the minimum slope of 0.5% and a maximum of 1.5. I thought that was the easiest way to do it. Or you could look at it, do you want a range, from 0.5% to 1.5%? But I think in your design of your cross section, you might want to be somewhat consistent. And I hope changing it from 1.5% to 1% does not cause a lot of heartache in the design, with the design people. But I thought this might be a way to easily solve this. But I am looking for some discussion on from our group here about changing this to a 1%.
My initial thought, Carl, is 1.5% has kind of been the standard and the typical. And I like having the ranges, but I would think we would still show 1.5%, and we just might note minimum 0.5 and maximum 2.0.
Okay. Or cannot exceed 2.0, I guess.
Right. And I think technically it's measured as 1 foot and 48, which is actually like 2.08%, but everyone kind of just.
The intent is they set the forms and the design is 1.5%. And the variations may come afterwards with the settling and movement of soils and or other factors to keep it within that range.
Other comments?
Yeah, I'm kind of the opinion that we just give them a slope and the tolerance will work its way from there, not to exceed 2% and not to be less than 1%. But if we have a target of 1.5%, this is what our slope's going to be. Just can't go over 2, and can't go under 1.
Or
I
half
recall
percent.
our discussions back when we did the curb ramp details. We of course we hashed this out a lot, as I'm sure all of us have done internally and as well, these slopes and how to show them. But I think what we did is we put language in section 340 for the maximum, ADA requirements, and we put the target on the detail, which is right now 1.5. But I'd have to revisit what we did on language on that.
I went to 340 and it says I looked specifically for that, and it's got a plus or minus half an inch from plan, and that's where the thing originated from, how you could actually exceed 2% on a certain sidewalk if you went with that tolerance. So maybe we have to look at the spec too, or add something to the spec that with the same range when it comes to sidewalks.
I hear what you're saying, Carl. I was just I thought we had something else in here about the ADA maximums.
No, I might have missed it.
Oh, there it is right there.
Okay.
Oh, is that-
Tolerances.
Slopes right there, the tolerances.
One paragraph above deficiencies.
Slopes of pedestrian, yeah, what is it? Yep, there you go.
Okay.
So Carl, this is still a proposed case. If you're ready to submit a draft to present it as a case, you're welcome to do that at any time now.
Yeah, I do believe it is worthy, and we should do something about it, because we got a lot of sidewalk getting rejected for not being 1.5%. So yeah, I can go ahead and make it a case, or Gordon can. And I'll come back with your tolerances, as opposed to that changing that grade, that design grade.
Okay. The other proposed cases include water valve abandonment detail. Any news on that, updates?
That was me. I don't have anything quite ready. Hopefully I'll be able to talk more about that at the water sewer. I liked that idea of having a manhole abandonment detail as well. So didn't know if people felt that could be the same detail, like we could combine both a water valve and a manhole detail, or should we keep those in the 300 and 400 series separate? But we can talk more at the working group.
Yeah, Warren, that's exactly what I brought up at the working group meeting. We should do one for the manhole as well.
Yeah, I thought that was good, Jim. And I looked, Mesa has some a good paragraph about the language there. So I saw 434.3. we can talk more.
Thank you. So Warren, you're continuing to work on preparing something for a future case, and sounds like we'll keep working on that in the working group. So thank you. Extending the warranty period to 2 years. Any updates on this being a potential case?
Yeah, Ryan, I'm working on getting the specs. I've got 3 of them. I'm just kind of combining them. I did want to get a buy-in from the city. I know it's kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want a better warranty? But I just wanted to confirm, and yeah, everybody wants it. So I'm comfortable with moving it forward with the case. So I'm just working on putting it together now. So
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, and I think we had in our last meeting some pretty detailed discussion on that, and at least the initial feedback we got from the industry group was that the 2-year warranty wasn't a concern. I think maybe Paul had mentioned that specifically.
no, and I've even talked to some contractors, and they say that's fine. You know, they just want to make sure, though. We probably gonna have to put some stipulations as far as, you know, what it covers. So
Start time, end time.
yeah, and you know, workmanship should be decided when you buy off on it. You know, not necessarily a warranty item. You know, in other words, they didn't want this, you know, agencies to come back later and say, oh, we don't like the way that concrete looks. You know, take it out. The warranty stuff is more for cracks and failures, settlements, that type of thing. So we may have to define a little bit, just to make sure, you know, what applies to the warranty. So
Great. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you working on that one. Revisions to section 792 and 230 relating to dust palliatives.
So last we said I was going to put together some information just to give a highlight of where we're at. I've done some research on that, and at the time right now I'm not ready to give that report. I'm shooting for April to be able to report to the group what I found, all my findings on that as I move forward with that.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, is there any other discussion on new potential cases for 2022? Anything new that someone wants to bring up?
We do. I was going to bring it up in the working group notes, but I can bring it up now. That'd be convenient.
Sure. Yeah. Great.
Okay. So in the outside right-of-way group, we're looking at, and actually we've got one fairly well into the draft stage on vegetated or rock bioswale sections and details. Eric Bonds with the city of Tempe is doing the final drafting on that. We did a major review of it in the last meeting. So we're expecting that one will be ready to present in April. And Eric is looking to get a sponsor on that one right now. But I think that he's handling that, so he'll move forward on that. You talked already about the landscape or the irrigation standards, so we've got that one moving forward. We've got a few others in the pipeline. I can talk about it in the working group notes because they're not quite as developed yet.
That's fine. Thank you. And before we move on to working groups, is there anyone else that has proposed or potential cases? Okay, then let's move to agenda item 10, which is our working group reports. And starting off here, looks like first is our water sewer working group.
yes, we met on February 15th. It was an online meeting. So one of the cases we talked about, or one of the things we talked about, was the case, or the case that Roy brought up on the valve boxes. So we talked about that. The other thing that came up was sewer testing. As far as the gauge goes, I think most agencies do videos on sewer. Kind of looking for just people to say yes or nay on that.
Yes.
Yes.
Because yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then does the city do that, or do you guys use like a third party?
This is Chandler. We have a third party that we pay for the first. If they fail, the contractor has to pay subsequent.
Okay. So one thing we're finding out, we allow a third party to do that. We're finding out that the gauge, you typically you want to do it right after you hydrovac the line. You got water in the line. That's how you can determine if there's any bellies, sags, deflection in the pipe. We're finding that there's not really a spec or anything that calls out how to do the gauge, and we're getting like pieces of bent steel just with marker on it, and it's very archaic, I guess. So and the mag doesn't really get into any detail on that. So we talked about maybe looking at trying to come up with a spec on that. So minimums. So because there some of them it's up to an 8-inch or 12-inch. I think you got a 5/8 of an inch. There's just no way to gauge that with these gauges that some of these firms are using. So again, we're going to get more detail on that. And then the other thing is on the sewer testing is a mandrel. You guys do mandrels. Is anybody checking the making sure the size of the mandrel is right and the condition of it? We're running into these problems with our inspectors, and so I want to talk about it in more detail at the working group to see if we need to develop a spec for that. There's nothing in mag really calls that out. So they're using a 4-inch mandrel on 8-inch line. There needs to be something, I think, specified for those types of tests. We pretty well cover the air test. It's pretty detailed, but the video part and the mandrel is pretty sparse. So so we talked about that. We talked about, again, the wet barrel fire hydrant detail 360-2. We're finding out that the shock block isn't meeting what the manufacturers are doing. So we might have to put a range or modify that detail 360-2 again to match what the industry's doing with their check valves on the wet barrel fire hydrant. Now I'm working on I'm going to clarify the detail on the deep sewers, where we've got to require, if it's deeper than 20 foot, to put rebar or reinforcing in the base. And, I just want to clarify where that 20 foot stops. And then as I'm digging into it, I'm finding out, there needs to be more into it as far how is that rebar supported. We had one where it was just supported on the edge, and then when they poured the concrete, it just dropped down in the middle. So there's nothing that specifies that, how to place that rebar. Then the last thing we talked about was trying to come up with a standard detail for air relief valves. And Crystal Flitton, she's an industry rep. She had a lot to contribute on that, and it looks like a lot of the details are similar from all the various agencies, and I think we can come up with some kind of general detail on that. So that's what we worked on. So and then our next meeting is going to be actually on the 4th Tuesday of March 22nd, because March has like 5 weeks in it. So we wanted to bump it back to the 4th week. So again, the next meeting will be March 22nd at 1:30. It'll be online, and then we'll discuss at that meeting if we want to maybe start meeting in person. There are a few people that would like to meet in person. So, and that's it.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, our next working group. Let's see.
The material.
Asphalt. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we canceled the meeting on the 17th. There was a number of conflicts, to try to have the meeting. We definitely will have a meeting on March 17th. We have some items to discuss, some language on a couple of the standards that we were looking at. 321, 322 proposed language. So we'll definitely have a meeting, and again, it'll be virtual, and we'll have a conversation about what are we going to do going forward. I think it'll probably end up being hybrid though.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And outside right of way working group, Peter.
Hi there, Ryan. Okay, we had our meeting on February 17th. And again, very good turnout. We've talked about a lot of the items we went over already in terms of the landscape work, which is the primary work that's been going on. But as I said, we did got a lot of feedback on the vegetated rock bioswales detail that's coming out. And again, the update on where we were, and you heard already from Zach on what the status is on those. On the irrigation details. The other ones we're looking at right now, the spillway detail, Eric is going to primarily be the one working on that. So we need to have him finish up on the, he needs to finish up on the vegetated rock bioswales. And that's that one that was missing from last year that we did the sedimentation basin. Now we got to connect the two pieces together. So I owe him a few items. It's primarily in the research area. Keith Kesty reported his status on developing the detention tank criteria. He's been talking to a number of people who have done some research or have done some studies on that. He's looking both at the metal type and the prefabricated ones. So he's talking to vendors also at this time. I expect we'll probably see something in the May timeframe on that one, based on what I heard from where he's at on that. And I'm working on the dry well details. I've got a rough draft. I've got to get some drafting time to do some cleanups and get it to the group. My hope is at the next meeting, we'll be able to start doing some reviews on those. Our next meeting is March 17th. And if you can answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee on any of the working groups?
Peter, I had a question. Were you working on underground retention specs and details?
Yes, that's what Keith Kesty is the one that's primarily working on those right now. He's using, I think City Chandler is the primary one that he's using their detail to start with.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Peter, just on that, I know I've mentioned it before, that underground CMP tank, we have some fairly serious concerns about continued use of that. Because of all the failures that we've had. Maybe it's a mandatory coating that is the solution, but
yeah,
so many failures that we're honestly considering pulling that.
Yeah, and because of that, Keith recognized that. He talked to Speedy Associates, and I just lost his name for some reason. Al, he's been talking to the consultants on that specific issue because there's certain recommendations that have to be done. If you're going to use a metal one, there's certain things that have to happen. It comes down to a lot of the treatment and the backfill, from what I understood. So he's looking at that to see what notes would have to be adjusted, and we could discuss that with you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Greg Creaser, that's who went out of my head. Greg Creaser, who wrote a paper on this a few years ago.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 11. Any requests for future agenda items be talk about now? Okay, hearing none. Agenda item number 12, comments, any other general comments or discussion? All right, you guys made the end of the meeting very easy here then. So thank you everyone for your time and participation today. Appreciate it. And if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and adjourn.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you,
everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye.